Thanks so much, everyone, for coming. Minister Larivee is going to make some brief remarks, and then our officials will be available to take your questions.
So good morning, everyone. Today I have an update on the fire situation as well as the progress of recovery efforts. Much of Alberta thankfully experienced a cold, wet, long weekend, but unfortunately that did not extend to the Fort McMurray area. The southern edge of the fire received between 3 and 5 millimeters of precipitation this weekend, and the northern edge of the fire, where it is burning most actively, received none. There is no significant precipitation in the forecast in the next couple of days either. There were 40 new wildfire starts yesterday. What's concerning is that most of them were due to campfires that were abandoned. There are 17 active wildfires burning in Alberta right now. 1 out of control, which is the Fort McMurray fire. 1 being held, which is the Peace River Clear Hills fire. 14 under control, including the Lac La Biche fire, and 1 turned over to the local authorities. Across the province, there are 1,989 firefighters, 88 helicopters, 25 air tankers, and 253 pieces of heavy equipment. Overall, we now have more resources working on the Fort McMurray fire, which continues to burn out of control, and fewer in other parts of the province where the risk has gone down. Around 1,000 more firefighters should be on the ground in the next 2 weeks from across Canada, the U.S., and South Africa. While fire risk has fallen in most parts of the province, it remains high to extreme in Fort McMurray. Suppression efforts will be a challenge today. Weather in the Wood Buffalo region is forecast to be a high of 21 degrees with a relative humidity of 30%. And winds from the south of 20 gusting to 40 kilometers per hour. Air quality continues to be a concern in the region. At 10 a.m. this morning, it was 6. The fire has experienced some growth, primarily along the northern perimeter since I last spoke to you. It is now more than 522,892 hectares. This includes nearly 2,500 hectares in Saskatchewan, and this fire is now being fought on both sides of the border. Mandatory evacuations continue to be in place for Fort McMurray, Anzac, Fort McMurray First Nation, Fort McKay, and Gregoire Lake Estates. The regional municipality of Wood Buffalo has allowed a phased reentry to all oil sand sites, subject to environment and public health inspections. Re-entry of workers to these sites is subject to similar criteria as for residents of Fort McMurray. 1 is that wildfire is no longer an imminent threat and that air quality is within more reasonable levels. The industrial sites have their own guidelines according to approved occupational health and safety for their sites. Currently, they are assessing conditions and working with the province and the regional municipality to prepare for the re-entry of workers once re-entry conditions are met. Anyone planning to travel north of Fort McMurray seeking an abandoned vehicle should first contact their employer and/or the facility where the vehicle was abandoned. Efforts to support the re-entry of residents beginning June 1st continue. Restoration of the hospital resumed on Sunday, and the Mobile Urgent Care Centre now has an operating room, an anesthesiologist, an obstetrician capable of doing surgery, and a general surgeon. This centre is available to anyone in the Fort McMurray region, including first responders, restoration workers, and returning evacuees when that time comes, as hospital restoration work continues. Progress is being made on safe drinking water, but a boil water advisory remains in effect until lines are flushed, the reservoirs are cleaned, and sampling confirms water quality. Stormwater inlets have been protected in 8 neighborhoods to protect the water system and Athabasca River from ash and debris. Water quality sampling equipment is being installed in the Athabasca and Clearwater rivers. Electricity service has been restored to more than 90% of the community, including outlying areas like Anzac and Fort McMurray First Nation. Natural gas has been restored up to more than 99% of homes outside Abasand, Waterways, and Beacon Hill. A re-entry information booklet has been posted on the Regional Municipality of Wood Buffalo website. It contains valuable information and tip sheets on things to bring with you when returning to Fort McMurray, safety precautions, how to safely clean up after a wildfire, and how to prevent mold. We are still on track for a voluntary phased reentry beginning June 1st. But I remind all Wood Buffalo residents that all services will not be fully operational by then, and there may be people who choose to wait as a result. Others may want to come up to Fort McMurray just to collect belongings, survey the damage, and seek some closure if they've lost their homes before returning to their temporary accommodations. If you have an existing health condition, are pregnant, or have a respiratory condition, you should wait to return until medical professionals advise that it is safe for you to do so. While recovery work is proceeding, we continue to support the evacuees. Today, debit card distribution moves to Alberta Works offices in 13 communities across Alberta, including Grand Prairie, Lac La Biche, Edmonton, in fact there are 4 in Edmonton, Red Deer, another 4 in Calgary, Medicine Hat, and Lethbridge. For anyone who's any questions regarding the debit card distribution across the province, you can call again the information line 310-4455 to answer your questions. As of last night, 35,797 debit cards have been distributed to 73,395 people for a total distribution of $76.4 million to date. We continue to receive questions about how evacuees who have left Alberta can get their debit cards. We need to do this in a secure fashion so that the right funds are provided to the people who need it. At the distribution centres, and as of today, at those selected Alberta Works offices, evacuees presented proper identification in person, which made verification easier and efficient. We are looking at options to ensure a similar level of verification for out-of-province evacuees and hope to have something in place soon. Please keep in mind there is no cutoff date for evacuees to get their debit cards in person. If you qualify, you will get it. And debit cards will be available when evacuees return to Alberta. We are also continuing our outreach efforts to ensure evacuees have the information that they need. The telephone town halls that we've held have attracted around 10,000 participants or more each night, so we will continue to hold them while the demand is there. This week, they will be tonight, Wednesday, and Thursday night, and I look forward to interacting with a number of people from the region and being able to answer their questions. So that is it for my update. I will pass it over to Chad to give his own.
Thank you, Minister. Chad Morrison from Alberta Wildfire. As noted by the Minister, the fire is approximately 523,000 hectares in size and continues to spread out to the forested areas to the east and northeast, away from the community industrial areas. And the fire has burned approximately 2,500 hectares in Saskatchewan. As you can see on the satellite map, and I'll point to it, most of the growth is in those northern sections, and we expect to see similar conditions there today with some south winds, as there was no rain received in the north or the eastern portions. To give you guys to look at the weather and the rainfall, we had lots of rain in southern parts of the province, but as you can see, in the Fort McMurray area, there was very little rain up in those western portions of the fire. Did see a little bit of rain, and that really just helped us get some cooler conditions for the day. But during the cooler weather, weekend weather, firefighters continued to anchor in with dozers and aircraft and firefighters. We have established over 170 kilometers of fire guard built by dozer, as well with the 1,200 firefighters on scene, 55 helicopters, 186 pieces of equipment. We continue to make great progress. We continue to rotate through our Alberta firefighters through the complement of 1,200 firefighters that we have on scene, and now we're continuing to receive more support from our national and international partners. Much of this is due to the bit of the break in weather, and with the fire behavior being a little bit cooler, we're able to surge with more firefighters that we can put on the perimeter safely. So we're bringing in up to 1,000 additional firefighters over the next 2 weeks from across Canada, the U.S., as well as South Africa and other countries. We continue to work through our national and international partners to bring in qualified, certified, highly trained and experienced firefighters that can hit the ground running in these still very extreme fire conditions on the perimeters and the forested areas that we're experiencing. Firefighters from across Canada, the U.S., including Alaska, will arrive sometime this week, as well as we're expecting to receive 280 firefighters from South Africa next week. Our priorities continue to be to securing the hotspots in and around the communities, as well as control and secure the fire around critical infrastructure and industrial facilities and camps to the north, while continuing to get the perimeter secured for long-term in the forested areas. With that, I'll turn it back to the Minister for questions.
All right, we can take your questions now.
I'd like to ask about the information booklet. It's extremely in-depth, and just even reading the cleaning section, it's clear how much these people have to do. Can you talk about that and just this sort of really vast amount of work people have to do?
I can talk to that. So Scott Long, Executive Director Operations, Alberta Emergency Management Agency. You're absolutely right. There is an awful lot of advice and detailed instructions. I can tell you on the ground with the regional municipality, there is still an awful lot of work that is being done in terms of environmental testing, so we can determine exactly what we need to also worry about in certain areas. So a lot of that work is still ongoing. There's still more detail to come, but we are trying as hard as possible to make sure that those people that go back to homes that are still standing have as much information, advice as possible with regards to the cleanup of their homes. If there are any other environmental threats, again, that information is being gathered as we speak, so there will be more information that will be forthcoming. Or possibly could be more information forthcoming based on environmental testing that's being done right now. The primary focus has always been the safety of Albertans. That still remains our primary focus. And there will be more detail to follow based on ongoing tests and as we get further and further into the developing those essential services and getting them up to speed.
It sounds like every house, standing or not, is going to need a deep clean though.
Oh, absolutely. But as I said before, and from the experts, it depends on the proximity to the fire. Did you leave your door open? Were your windows open? There's a number of different factors. So what that looks like inside, we are going to work closely with all the homeowners. We haven't been inside their homes. So when they come home, part of that information center booklet will have that kind of information advice. The regional municipality will have the expertise there. They will have phone numbers for hazmat. You also have your insurance providers who are experts and who are in touch with the experts to also give you the kind of detailed information you need.
Scott, is there something that could come through in that environmental testing that could delay our return?
I can't speculate on that. I can tell you that we're being very thorough on everything. And if there is, again, I go back to safety is paramount. If there's something in a specific area that could delay something in a specific area, as soon as we know, you will know. But right now, we are just doing due diligence and making sure, specifically in the Beacon Hills, Abbotsam waterways area, where those structures were completely burned, that, you know, there are hazards there. And I know there's an emotive piece to people wanting to get in and see their homes. So we want to make sure that that's as safe as possible. And how that looks and what that plan is looking like, we're working closely with the municipality. Details to follow based on additional environmental testing.
Minister, I wanted to ask you about businesses. Is there a different re-entry plan for them, or what do you say to businesses who are eager to get in, especially if they haven't had much damage?
Right. Again, so the priority, I'm not as tall as Scott. The priority continues to be ensuring the safety of the region. So part of that is the restoration of essential services. So we've worked through the regional municipality, including with the Chamber of Commerce, to get in touch with essential services to ensure that we have those up and running. So for those businesses, we've reached out to them. We're working with them to restore the support. For the remaining businesses in the community, they will be able to return upon the time that their own community opens up at that time.
Can you talk about the info centers that are going to be operating in the city, sort of what services they're going to be providing, when they'll be open, that sort of thing?
Do you have anything on this?
I've got a little bit of detail. So again, a lot of this, as you can well imagine, there's an awful lot of work. It's going nonstop, 24/7 on all of these sorts of plans. But essentially, there will be information centers that will be established in each neighborhood where you'll be met. There will be regional municipality personnel there. I know this week they're also talking with insurance providers, because insurance providers are not up there until the people arrive. There will be detail on if you left a car behind, There were a number of cars, I believe 422, that were towed to a central area. Some have been damaged by fire. So if you have those sorts of questions, they will be provided. The information booklet will be provided. Any and all sorts of services, assistance that we can come up with, that we can think about, we hope to do through the information centers. And I know they're still working on a lot of that detail, and I know that there will be a lot of communications that will come on out between now and 1 June that will fill in the gaps. But right now, we don't have all the answers, but in days to come, all of those information sessions, all of that information will happen. I can tell you this week we plan to do a big, I refer to it as a war game, if you will, a rehearsal of how reentry is going to look. That is being run at the regional center with participation from the province, and we will look at all aspects. If there's any gaps that we have not thought of, we will quickly address those. I know right now within the provincial operations center, we're looking at the traffic control plan to get close to 80,000 people back to Fort McMurray in a very short period of time. So a lot of detail to come, but a lot of work happening as we speak.
Okay, we're going to take some questions from the phones and then we'll return to the floor. Operator, can I have the first caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Tanya Zielinski with Upstream International. Your line is open.
Hi there, thank you. Can you tell me right now if any oil sands workers have returned to camps, and then a follow-up after that?
Morning, ma'am. I can say that there were a number of camps that were not impacted by the mandatory evacuation order that was announced on the 17th of May that are still working. They are not impacted at all. The camps that and facilities that were impacted by the mandatory evacuation notice, as the minister said, that evacuation notice has been rescinded. But it's a phased approach. The first part of that is to go in and check the conditions of the camps, the lodges where the workers will be housed. We know we did lose one, the Black Sands oil facilities. That's in conjunction with Alberta Health Services. Right now, I know from our oil and gas partners who we are in close contact with daily, and we have a planner here in the operations center as well as a planner over at the Wildfire Center. They are looking at their reentry plan. They are well aware of the criteria the province has established. There's no set time for them to go back, but just like us, the safety of their workers, the safety of Albertans is first and foremost in any decisions from oil and gas and for us.
Thank you. And my follow-up question is actually for Chad Morrison, just to get this on the record. About a week and a half ago, oil sands producers were ready to try to start restarting production, and the fire turned back. Is it safe to say at this point the fire has moved beyond the oil sands region?
Yeah, Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. It's still early in the fire season for us, so that, our fire season, this fire is not under control by any means. So while the fire continues to spread to the north and northeast away from the facilities and the community, there always is that potential. So which is why we're dedicating thousands of resources onto this thing at this point. From the southern facilities, the Suncor Syncrudes, we continue to secure the sites around there. We feel fairly confident in the coming days that the ground will hold most of the ground there, but it's still obviously we have some hot, dry conditions coming this week, so we'll really be put to the test here and see how that holds. But again, now that most of the vegetation that has been around those ones to the south, the Syncrudes and Suncor, has been burnt and removed, it's actually much safer long term, especially around the industrial camps as well. But we continue to mop up those hot spots and make that one of our critical priorities to continue to secure that. But yeah, again, it's still very early in the fire season for us as well. This is very early in the fire. We really haven't had any significant rain on this fire all year, and so we're going to be going on almost 2 to 3 months now without rain. So we expect the potential for extreme wildfire conditions to occur. The fortunate thing is the prevailing winds will be pushing that fire most of the time away from those facilities, and we continue to put thousands of resources on it to hold it. So at this point, there's no immediate threat from my perspective, but again, still very early on, and we got to see even just get through the week here and see what we do for behavior. But we expect to hopefully hold it as best we can over the next coming days.
Operator, can I please have the next caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Jeff Morgan with the Financial Post. Your line is open.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my question. With respect to the additional help coming from the U.S. and South Africa, and you mentioned other countries as well, when was the decision made to bring in this additional help?
Yeah, Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. We've always been in contact with our partners nationally and internationally over this during this event. Given the extreme wildfire conditions we were seeing there, we had the large wildfire movement and extreme fire behavior as late as last week. We do expect that still out here in the coming weeks ahead in those forested areas away from the community. So the decision was always there to try and continue to supplement that. We continue to use Alberta wildfire fighters first to bring them in, rotate through our existing resources. But over the weekend there, we were hoping for more rain. We didn't get it, but we continue to secure more lines. So like I said earlier, we have 170 kilometers of cat guard established now, and the firefighters that we have on scene have secured much of the perimeter. And so with the cooler conditions we've had this week, we have the ability to safely deploy some of these experienced firefighters out there more, and we'll continue to kind of assess as we go. Again, it's very early in the year for us, and we expect weeks, if not months, fighting this fire in the forested areas. So yeah, that's the decision there was, we were in constant contact. We just didn't have the ability to safely deploy them, but we do have more safe areas for those folks to work now as of this weekend. With just a touch of rain, we're able to get a better anchor in a lot more on those on the perimeter. So we have more places now to put those folks.
So sorry, just to be clear, then the call to bring them in was made this weekend as a result of these safer areas?
Yeah, we've actually been in contact with much of our national and international partners for quite a while. We've had enough resources locally within the province and within Canada for the most part, given the conditions we were experiencing and the type of fire we were fighting. A lot of the firefighting we had to do was with tankers and aircraft, and now we have more safe places to put boots on the ground. So the call was that those discussions occurred early last week. It could take up to 7 days for some of the international folks to come in, so that's always been part of our long-term strategy and process. One of the normal things for us in fighting these large-scale wildfires is to have a slow build up. When it's safe to put firefighters on the ground, we're going to put them there as soon and quickly as fast as we can. And then obviously when we do that, we're going to be tapping into our international resources. Given the size and scope and magnitude of this fire, we definitely appreciate the help that they're going to provide us over the coming weeks.
Thank you. Operator, can we have the next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Cullen Bird with Fort McMurray Today. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you. My question is, I guess, for whoever can answer it best. We're standing now about a week from reentry. Still getting questions from people about when and how they'll be able to go to their homes if they have indeed been destroyed by fire. Is there any more information or detail you can offer on how people are going to be able to do that? I know one of the conditions is that those areas have to be secured. In Slave Lake, it was first responders who actually dug through the rubble, and the homeowners themselves were not able to go to those sites themselves. Is there going to be some sort of, basically what kind of form is it anticipated to take in terms of allowing homeowners to go through their possessions?
Thank you. That's actually a really great question, and honestly, one we don't exactly have the answer to yet. Right now, Scott referenced the fact that we're doing a lot of assessment of the risk associated with the most damaged areas in terms of if it poses any hazard or risk, not only to the people investigating their own property, but also if it could potentially pose a risk to a broader area than that. So as we come up with a plan to manage the potential risks in those areas, both for the whole area, but also for the particular homeowner. And we'll find that right balance to ensure that they have the opportunity to do that safely, but we still don't absolutely know the best way to manage that. Do you want to supplement? No. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Operator, can we have the next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Briar Stewart with CBC News. Your line is open.
Thank you. I have two questions. The first one would be for Chad. You gave a number on how many firefighters are expected from South Africa. Do you have a number about the personnel expected from the U.S.?
Yeah, Chad Morrison with Alberta Wildfire. So arriving May 25th, we expect 200 firefighters from the U.S., 22 from Parks Canada, 86 from British Columbia. On the 26th of May, we expect another 24 from Northwest Territories, and 85 from Alaska, another 80 from British Columbia. And then on the 27th, we expect 20 from New Brunswick, 20 from Prince Edward Island and Newfoundland, another 40 from British Columbia. And then on the 29th, the tentative plan is 280 from South Africa. And that comes to a total about 857 at this point. We expect sort of more orders to be filled over the coming days. So we'll have more details to follow here in the next few weeks.
Okay, operator, can we please have the next caller?
My follow-up?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I just had a question about the rehearsal for reentry. How will that work, and how many different officials will be involved in that? Like, will you have people, kind of acting out the part of residents? How will that work?
Well, it'll be led by the regional municipality. There will be provincial representation there. We'll have industry partners. We'll have business stakeholders. So essentially, every stakeholder that we need around the table will be there that has a part to this. And as you said, what we will do is we will just walk through each phase, everything from the movement of people to Fort McMurray, the movement of people on day one into the information centers, the sorts of information they will need at the information center, location of media during reentry phases, what happens when you do see your home and you do require or have some questions for follow-up on cleaning, how the insurance providers are going to be linked in there. So, and I can go on, there's a huge list. So essentially what we are going to do is we're going to go step by step in a detailed process through what we expect and hope to happen, and we will question some of those assumptions, and if we find that there's a gap, something that we haven't thought of, we will build it into the plan, and you will find that we plan to do this towards the end of this week so that we can fill in all of those gaps and make sure that the key messages and the information and the communications that go forward prior to 1 June are the most accurate and detailed that we can make them.
Okay, we're going to take 2 more questions from the phone, and then we'll wrap up on the floor. Operator, can we have next caller, please?
Your next question comes from the line of Eric Johnson with Reuters News. Your line is open.
Hi, thank you, guys. First, at this point regarding industrial operations, are there any barriers at all to companies getting in and restarting?
Yeah, thanks. So certainly, again, the criteria have to be met, that there's no serious threat either from the fire or the air quality. And they also have to provide proof that they can provide the essential services and safety through occupational health and safety. And then if they are a camp providing food, they need to work with AHS to ensure that they meet the public health standards as well. So the biggest concern, if we were to look at any of those right now, would likely be air quality continuing to be a challenge, but they do have their own occupational health and safety standards that are approved. They're very committed to following, and so they will continue to work with their workers and be in close communication with us to ensure that they can take care of the safety of their workers.
So have all inspections of the campsites, has all that been completed? And everybody, as long as the campsites are, from a health standpoint and food and a regulatory standpoint, as long as they're okay, they can start operations now. Any company in the Fort McMurray region.
So the inspections are ongoing with that. So we continue to work with them and provide support to them to get that done within a timely fashion.
Thank you. Operator, can we have our last caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Carrie Tate with Globe and Mail. Your line is open.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. With respect to air quality at the oil sands camps and the facilities, do you have the machinery there to measure that at each of the separate ones, the technology?
Yeah, Scott Long, Executive Director, Operations, Alberta Emergency Management Agency. There is a significant number of air monitoring systems throughout the regional municipality of Wood Buffalo. The oil and gas folks are embedded into the Provincial Operations Center. They are in line with our thinking, and they see where the smoke plumes are. As the minister said, they have very rigorous OH&S specifications, personal protective gear as well. They are well aware what the air quality is right now, and again, I will state that the safety of their workers, just like the safety of all Albertans, that's first and foremost in everyone's mind. Once they have, they're looking at that as part of their re-entry planning. The first check was to make sure that the lodges which were threatened and had smoke damage in some cases were looked, assessed, and meet the standards for health and safety standards. That is ongoing. We just lifted the mandatory evacuation order for some of these facilities over the weekend. So we expect that work to continue for a couple of days. And I can tell you right now that our industry partners are looking at their re-entry plans, but there's no decisions yet been made.
Sorry, just to clarify, are the technology that measures the air quality, are those at the site?
I can't tell you exactly if they're at the sites, but I can tell you that they're throughout the actual region, which is why we are able to tell you what the air quality is on an hourly basis. I will get that answer for you. I do not know if they have them at the sites. I suspect they may, but I don't know that detail. I'll get it for you.
Okay, we'll return to the floor now for a few questions, and then we need to wrap up.
To ask how long the large police presence that's in there right now is expected to be there?
So right now we still maintain from in province close to 300 RCMP officers. They are key to the re-entry. As you can imagine, we'll have a lot of traffic going up on Highway 63. We'll have services. We're working that plan now, but obviously traffic control and monitoring the situation and that heavy flow of traffic is going to be important. I know I've been on every town hall except for one, and one of the key questions that comes up all the time is safety or security of their residents. So I can't give you the exact detail, but the RCMP are there until it's deemed that the essential services are established, that safety is back in place, and that we have residents back in their community. So right now, the conversation about when the RCMP presence is going to be lifted has not happened.
Chad, I wanted to ask you about the 40 new fires that were started, the majority by campfires that have been unattended. Are these in areas that the fire ban has been lifted, or there was still a fire ban in place? And how concerning is that to you, even though we may have a lot of moisture here? What are the areas you're seeing?
Yeah, it's Chad from Alberta Wildfire. Thanks for the question. Yeah, obviously any time people are leaving an abandoned campfire, it's a huge concern to firefighters. There was no fire ban in many of the areas in the south where there was lots of rain, and so obviously people were safe to have a campfire. So, fortunately, we're talking about a small minority of folks that are leaving their campfires unattended. The big thing was we want people, when they're done at the end of their long weekend or they're done camping, is just soak it, stir it, soak it again, and make sure it's cold to the touch with their campfires. Again, we're going to be out patrolling and always checking those areas, even though there is lower hazards there. But we really don't we don't want our firefighters spending time out there putting out campfires when they could be up fighting the fire in Fort McMurray. So, yeah, we want the cooperation of all Albertans to help us do our job.
So were the majority of those new starts in southern Alberta?
A lot of it's in the sort of random camping areas scattered within the Rockies, but there are some across the province. But generally in a lot of places in the south where there is random camping, where there's thousands of campers. So, like I said, the majority of campers are very responsible, and we appreciate their efforts, and we just want folks to take that extra little step if they can.
Chad, I see a red and yellow dot there north of Parsons Creek. Is that flare-up still going, or have you guys got that out?
Yeah, so you'll see that sometimes in satellite imagery that'll capture some of that stuff there. So again, that could be something as an industrial flare site. So the stuff that's in like that, that's generally what that is. So that's just an error on there, my understanding. But there is some, it's a good point and good question. Within the fire, there is some unburnt green islands, and so those will burn out into the black and make sure that those are safe to do so. And we have lots of resources on if anything's of a concern, but no reports from that perspective. There's no concerns there. As you can see, much of the spread is really up in the forested areas away from the facilities and the communities. So.
No concern for Parsons Creek with that?
No, none. No, that's right. Thanks.
Okay, our final two questions today are going to come from the phone, and then our officials need to get back to work. Operator, can I have the next caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Tanya Zielinski with Upstream International. Your line is open.
Hi there. One more question. With regards to oil sands operations and the phased in of then residents to Fort McMurray, when it comes to oil sands service companies, is there a different methodology for them in case they need to be assisting site operations?
I'm not quite sure I understand. Could you repeat your question, please?
Yes, of course. Oil sand service companies that are based in Fort McMurray, will they be allowed to get into the city sooner than residents if they are assisting various oil sands projects?
No. The mandatory evacuation order is still in place for Fort McMurray. I can tell you, working closely with our colleagues from oil and gas, they are fully supportive and understand the requirement to get the residents back to Fort McMurray safely. A lot of them are their employee base. And yes, as you mentioned, there are services that they rely on Fort McMurray to provide to the oil sands industry. But the oil sands industry does not come first. It's getting Fort McMurray residents back as quickly as possible. And obviously those conversations are happening. As the minister said, the Chamber of Commerce and the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade are fully engaged with local businesses and getting them back up to speed as quickly as possible. That's all part of what we're trying to do here. And the quicker we can get them up to speed, the quicker we can get the oil sands safely up to speed and full operation. I think we're all united on that and understand how that has to work.
Thank you. This will be our last question. Operator, can you put through the next caller?
Your next question comes from the line of Eric Johnson with Reuters News. Your line is open. Eric Johnson with Reuters News. Your line is open.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you guys could comment in terms of how long do you think it will take for Fort McMurray to return to normalcy?
Normalcy is a very relative term and means something very different for every person who will be going back to Fort McMurray. So, I mean, we can talk, about a variety of things. In particular, for example, removing the boil water advisory. That's a piece of normal that hopefully should be in place, barring unforeseen circumstances, potentially by the end of June. We still have enough work to do. I wouldn't lock in on that date. But, in terms of the long-term recovery of the community and in terms of individuals and their own mental health, there are a variety of things that are going to have to happen, and it certainly will be a long journey of many years. So we're very committed to working with the community, not just now in this response phase, not even with the immediate reentry, but to work with them long term to ensure that the community can, resume its original functioning. And in fact, the hope is we can work with them to, in some ways, be even better than they were before this fire, to help them be a healthy community again, full of healthy individuals and healthy families.
Thanks so much, everyone, for coming today.